time for us to do an updated room tour of my... I call it a games room, but realistically I don't like referring to it as a games room, even though it is a games room. It's my office. It's where I spend every waking moment of every single day ever. But let's go through it. I'm in a pretty good mood right now. I just want to, before we really get into the video, I want to say thank you guys, because this has been in the last month on YouTube, the best month financially I've ever had on this platform. And ever since I was like 13, I've told this story a million times in like long form when I tell my childhood stories and all that waffle. But I always wanted to be a YouTuber, and I just happened to become a TikToker first. And while I was a TikToker, I was never able to grow YouTube to a point where it was doing a thing. And at the minute, it's doing a thing. Like, if this month is anything to go by, it's now on its own, basically a full-time living, which is mental to me. And I could not do it without the 2,000 to 4,000 of you guys that check in and watch pretty much every video. Most videos I post now get a minimum of like 2,000 views after a few days, and if they do pretty well, they'll get up to 4,000. So thank you all. I nearly swore then, and if I swear this early, that doesn't do well. I love you all. You are helping little fat Cayle from when I was like 13's dream come true. I always said that I wanted peace, and TikTok, no matter how much money I made through TikTok, was never going to bring me peace because of how high the ups and lows are. For example, I've said this a few times, but the amount of money that I'm able to make on TikTok for the rest of this month, because I've crossed 60 videos, it's next to nothing now. So if it wasn't for sponsors and YouTube and stuff like that, I'd be in trouble, because this happens every month. But because YouTube is now doing this, I'm fine, and it's awesome, and I love you all. Anyway, let's get into the room tour, shall we? It's been like 6 months since I last did one, and things have changed a little bit. Right then, guys, we're going to be all dramatic, and I'm going to open up the door that really needs some oil. So we walk in, and this is my office. It's a pretty big room. It was... I live in a townhouse style house, so it's the same size as the living room because they're sort of stacked vertically on top of each other. And when I put it together with the idea that it has to be perfectly functional when it comes to recording videos in any which way I would record them. Whether it be a fitness style video, because again I was a fitness influencer first, or whether it be a gaming style video. I needed to be able to record in every possible way that I can. In this room, I have got an extraordinary amount of tripods and camera kit that's just stacked in hidden away or in plain view, and it's borderline a little bit silly. In this video, I'm going to try and go through all of the different pieces of equipment I've got, all the statistics in terms of like things like my PC, my TV, my monitors, and all that sort of thing, just so that, you know, everything is covered. I've just put something on the telly so that there's less of a reflection, so that you don't see my pajamas when I walk past. Because to be real with you, as you can tell, I'm filming this at night time. Okay, I suppose let's begin with the thing that people typically care the most about. The telly, because the telly is kind of the centerpiece of the room. Some would argue it's too big. I would argue you're wrong. I love it. This TV is a 77-inch OLED LG C2. I've had questions about how much it cost. The price has definitely going to have dropped since I got it, because I've now had it 2 years. It is my favourite TV that I have ever had, and trust me, I am a picky when it comes to TVs. I always have been. You see that TV in the corner over there? That is a 40-inch Samsung 4K curved TV. And it was previously my favourite TV ever. It was my main screen in my main setup before I moved out and got my own place and when I lived with my mom. In that room, long-time viewers of this have heard me say this a million times, I had no space. It was 6 foot by 8 foot. I could not move that chair because basically the front of it would touch that desk and the back of it would touch the single bed that I had. Me and my partner have been together a decently long time, and like, for example, over lockdown and things like that, she stayed with me at my mom's and we had a single bed. We survived with just a single bed. There was no space in this room. It was way too much. So when we moved into this house, it was integral to me that the house that we chose had enough space for me to have all of my stuff and still be able to move around and it still be comfy and not get overly warm, because trust me, that happens. I'll demonstrate that later, and hence why that's up there. So I suppose to get round to the question of how much was the telly, when I got this TV, it was £3,200. It is capable of 120 frames a second. Being an OLED, there is like no delay, and being an OLED, it does that where it screen saves pretty quickly to try and avoid any burn-in. I play for a lot of time, as you guys would probably imagine, and I've never experienced any burn-in yet. I enjoy and love this TV so much that we got a second one for in the living room. One of the crazier things about that TV is that if you wanted to get to the next size up, which I think was the 81-inch, it would have been £5,000. So, lads, I guess the true question here is, would you have paid an extra £1,500 or so for 4 extra inches? Is that a worthy trade-off? I don't know. Next up, one of the next most important spots. You see my Yu-Gi-Oh cards over here. You see beneath it, there's this big white blank wall. I'm thinking silver play button 1, silver play button 2, silver play button 3. In some form or fashion around that. I have 3 tube channels. The one you guys are watching is the one that is most likely to hit 100,000 one day because it's the one that's actually, on the up. The other ones are still pretty much brand new. I created them within the last week, so they're a long way off. But over time, my aspirations are silver play button, at least 1, and there's the spot that I've picked out for them. Because this is the wall that I kind of display stuff on. Let's go through the display stuffs, shall we? Okay, so first of all, I've got some framed Yu-Gi-Oh cards here. Sometimes people ask me, do I collect anything other than games or DVDs? No, not really. I had a big passion for Yu-Gi-Oh cards as a kid. I don't really know what happened to the vast majority of them, and I can only assume that some sort of parenting threw them out. You guys know what my dad's like if you've watched that video. So through the time that me and my partner have been together, through her listening to things that I've said, because, good people do that, every so often she will buy me Yu-Gi-Oh cards, specific ones that I would have loved through my childhood. So, for example, the Olympic God cards, the 3 Blue Eyes, Red Eyes, Shining Dragon, or Dark Magician. And then I really wanted to frame them when we got into the house because they're cool. None of these are expensive, by the way. These are all, I think they were £1 to £3 each. The frame cost more. I think the frame was £25 off Etsy. I literally just searched trading card game holder. It's nothing specific. We'll get to some specific framings in a moment. Next up, when it comes to stuff on the wall, we've got my armory of controllers over here. My IKEA, I think it's called a Scardis. It's definitely from IKEA. You can definitely get it from IKEA. It is technically 2 of them. If you look in the middle, there is a seam across here where I've stacked them on top of each other. I can't tell you how stressful it was trying to get them lined up perfectly. If you actually pay attention to these white little buttons, they're not perfectly on top of each other. So I'm going to stop staring at that before I go all Captain Autismo and get really annoyed about it. And then all of the different straps and things like that are all the different peripherals that you can get for the pegboards. If you look on IKEA's website or go into an IKEA, you can see them all. In fact, you'll notice that most of the IKEA peripherals that I've got up there are black. The hooks, the straps, the actual backboard itself. The only things that are not black are this little tray here, that hook thing there, which currently doesn't have my blade on it, my box opening knife, and the 2 cups. That's because they didn't actually do those in black for some reason at the time. They do now, but they're never in stock. I could order them online, but I really don't like ordering things online because, I don't know, my brain is stupid, and I'm just waiting to run into them in an IKEA trip at some point. Now, being real with you, this pegboard is mostly for display, because a lot of these controllers do not get touched. The only one of them that would really ever get touched is your mother. No, that Pro controller for the Switch up there. I don't use the Switch very frequently, but if I was to, it would be that controller. It's the only controller I've got for the Switch. All of the other ones, realistically, I don't use. So I've got the 2 wireless 360 controllers. If I use a 360, I use a wired gamepad. I've got 2 PS4 controllers. There's no need for me to use a PS4 because PS5 exists. There is an Xbox One Elite controller that I'm not exactly a fan of, because a lot of the if you look here, a lot of the stuff started peeling off it, and I didn't like the way it felt in my hands, so I just don't use it. So that's just relegated to the board. And then a PS3 controller that, again, is a secondary controller. I would use that if the other one was dead, but generally, when I use my PS3, I've never actually seen it get that bad. Like, the controller, the charge on the PS3 is always just excellent. I played through the entire Ratchet and Clank franchise on the PS3 for the most part, and I didn't see the controller warning even once. Whereas if I play for 4 hours on the PlayStation 5, I'll see it twice. It's crazy. Next display, shall we? I know that you guys really want me to go to the game collection, that's why I'm making you wait. It's good for engagement. We'll get there eventually, I promise. We'll go to the next thing that I've got on the wall. And it's actually a good thing that I'm showing this at night, because anytime I try and show this in the daytime, it doesn't work because of the glare through the window. Over here, I've got the God of War trilogy from PlayStation 2 and 3 framed from Framergame. The dude was nice enough to send me out the frame free of charge. I had to just provide the games myself. In return, anytime you guys ask about it, Framergame, code Cayle. You can frame near enough anything. I don't think he does cards. I I would love to give the dude a bit of a poke and be like, do some cards, because to be real with you, the company that did my framing of the Yu-Gi-Oh cards did mess me about a bit, to the point where they ended up having to like refund half of it just because of how much it was messed up initially. It wasn't like the Framer game thing I got for free because of, you know, having some followers. I was just a customer and he had no idea, and it just didn't go well. So like I don't exactly pimp the name of the Etsy shop that did that just because it didn't do. It wasn't a positive experience, as it were, whereas Framer Game has always been awesome. So if Framer Game ever gets around to doing cards, I'll point you guys that way for cards. And then I guess there's another thing on the wall that I should probably talk about, because I do get questions about it, my air conditioning unit. So again, I am a very sweaty person, and this room gets very, very sweaty because of the constant heat being put out from just about everything, including me. Just the habit of me stood here talking makes everything very, very warm. So this air conditioning is proper air conditioning. It's not one of these like things that is effectively just a fan. I've never found those to really work. It is really quite quiet, and it did cost a fortune. I'll be real with you. We got 2 of them put in, so we probably got a bit of a discount because of that. And they had real trouble because of the way our house is like structured, actually getting access to the outside. Like you see that little upside down T shape, that's the access to the outside. Initially we wanted that to be upstairs. So again, the house is 3 floors, and we wanted that to be hidden because it would be neater, but they just could not, no matter what they did. They spent a full work day trying to gain access to the outside of the house from the upstairs top floor, but they couldn't do it, so we lost a full day there. Anyway, so we got 2 units, and I think the whole thing cost a little bit over £5,000, but genuinely it's one of the most worthwhile things I've ever done, because all of my life it was too hot in my mom's house. Even now, right, it is midnight as I'm filming this. My window is open, and I am actually about to start dripping because I'm warm and the air conditioning is not on. It is quiet enough that you guys will never hear it in a video. It cools the room down to about 16 degrees, so probably cold enough that you would ever actually need. And I love it. And we've got one in the bedroom as well, because that gets too hot as well, because, you know, heat rises, the top floor will always be the hottest floor. So if you're someone that's like umming and ahhing over like upgrades to your setup, I think the air conditioning is often an overlooked one, where if it's within your budget, go for it. I'm in a bit of a lucky enough position where something like that, because again, this is my workspace, you know, it's a benefit. Oh yeah, something that I didn't do was go through the handhelds and all the sorts of things that are in these pots. Okay, so if we go through my handhelds, the majority of these are the ones that I've just had from a kid. Like, most of my consoles and all that sort of thing are nothing that I've bought as an adult. I've just owned them because I'm a bit of a hoarder. I don't like getting rid of things. I'm incredibly nostalgic. When my nan died, you guys have probably heard my stories about my nan and how, like, she was the family member I was closest to and how she basically looked after me when nobody else could. I refused to allow, like, anything of hers to be thrown away, and I, like, have it all now. We've decorated our house with her ornaments, basically, because they're nostalgic to me. But anyway, I keep things forever. So that's the original Game Boy that I got when I was 6 years old. That is my original 3DS XL from when it released. That is not my original DS Lite, the Metroid Prime one. A friend gave me that, like, 6 years ago or so, and that is my original 2DS from its release. I did have a DS Lite, but the hinge snapped on that, and it was when I was a kid, and we were not savvy enough to just realise you can get a hinge fixed. Because back when I was a kid, you often threw things away if they broke in a minor way, rather than realising actually that component was probably changeable. I don't know, maybe other people were smarter than me in my family. The bar for that is probably pretty low. Next up, if we go through some of the like recording equipment, because that's what we got here, we got some DJI mics. I love DJI. For example, this camera you guys are seeing right now for this recording is a DJI Osmo Pocket 3. I use it for like 6 hours a day, every day. I would at some point love to work with DJI because I've used their products for years. I have a lot of their products. I would love another Osmo Pocket 3 so that I could use one for vlogging, one for gaming. That'd be awesome. But if that ever happens, you'll be the first to know about it. But we're not there yet. Anyway, so got the DJI mics version 1, and I've also got the DJI mic version 2 that came with the camera you guys are seeing right now. I do also have, probably shouldn't show these if I'm on about working with DJI, but you know, I'm not sponsored yet, some Rode mics. I've always preferred the DJI ones because they connect way more easily to a phone, but we've got like 3 different variations of Bluetooth wireless microphone to work through so that it doesn't matter how many people I need to film, doesn't matter what situation I'm filming, I'm always capable of filming just about everything in every possible way, which is, like I said, when I built this room in terms of the way that it is layered and structured and all that sort of thing, the goal was as few cables visible as possible while being being as perfectly functional as possible. I hate having to mess with cables. Something that I had to do when I lived at my mum's all the time was if I wanted to use a specific console, I'd have to start messing with cables. In this house, I've tried to set everything up perfectly so that I never have to touch stuff like that. To the point where literally the other day I went out and I got a new thing to expand upon that. I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so more equipment. We've got some SteelSeries headsets. To be real with you, I absolutely never use them because I don't use a headset because the audio from the TV is just fine and outputs into what you guys are hearing, so it works just fine too. Then we've got my camera bag where I've got my Rode Video Mic Pro, which is the mic that goes on top of my camera, my other camera. And if we go over to my other camera, and again, I never ever use this really. It's just for if I was to ever stream or anything like that. We've got my Canon Mark. I don't think it is a Mark II. I think it's actually a Mark 1. It's a Canon M50. Either way, it's a pretty good microphone camera. It's a pretty entry-level camera, mind, with a Sigma 16mm. It's hang on, it's probably on the side. Is it? It's a Sigma 1.4 16mm. Trust me, it's the one they all use. Like if you watch a vlogger, there is a 50% at minimum chance that that's the camera they're using. Although recently there is probably about a 40% chance that the camera you guys are seeing me use now is the one they're using, because this is actually a worse quality than you're seeing right now, despite the fact that this is a full-size camera, and the camera you guys are watching me hold right now is less than the size of a phone. Let me just take you to a mirror so I can demo that. So yeah, we're in the bathroom now, so things probably just got kind of echoey. This is the mic. This is the camera that I film on just about everything. It's tiny. Like, there's my hand next to it. Like, my hand is bigger than the camera, so it's perfect when I'm like in a CEX trying to be discreet, especially because I can lower it and there's a little thumbstick so I can make you look up, I can make you look down, so like I can hold it low, point it high and still get a straight shot. It's pretty cool. So this is the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. It's my favorite camera. And then of course the hairspray, because how do you think I managed to get that to stay where it is? But like, it's become a fun game when I watch other YouTubers to spot the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 in their videos. Yanamize uses it. Daniel from Asheville uses it. I think Matt Watson from CarWow, I think I've seen him using it. Like, so many people, if they're like on their own and don't have a camera crew actively with them, are almost always using this. I saw when I went to Italy a few months ago, or a few weeks ago, whenever the hell that was, a few influencers at tables in restaurants that we went to, again, using this camera. I should probably mention other things in the room because, again, there are other cool things. Like if you're trying to get into content creating or anything like that, these are all recommendations, I suppose. So that tripod is so tall. One of the things that I needed was a tripod tall enough, because I could never find a tripod that was like tall enough to look me dead in the eye. That was a problem for some reason. And I'm only 5'9", so I don't know why that was a thing. But that's a K&F concept tripod, and it works perfectly. And then next up, you see my microphone on my low-profile Elgato. I think it's called the Elgato low-profile Wave, something like that. I love that. I used to have the Rode one, but the Rode one comes up and over, whereas this one, I attach it to my desk here, and I just swing it round when I need to. Ignore my toes that you just saw, you little weirdos. And now, if I just flip the camera around, it's just right in front of my face should I need to speak. And then what I also can do is also attached to this little glass unit that costs like next to nothing, but has got so much stuff on it, is this monopod. So sometimes I put the camera on the monopod and have it facing there if I'm doing that sort of setup, or other times what I will do is I'll come over here and I've got more tripods. So you see this ring light. This ring light, the light itself, was about £12 on Amazon about 4 years ago and should really have exploded by now, but just never did. I don't understand why, especially with how much... It is cheap tat, and I use it all the time. Like I was using it at the start of this video. Sometimes I will put that on the monopod instead and have it again pointed at the sofa. But generally, you guys saw this angle at the start of this video, is in the daytime I will stand in front of that window for the natural lighting, but at night time I will stand in front of this corner with the ring light on. So it's on this tripod, which is, again, it can go very, very tall without taking up much floor space, and that was a pretty cheap tripod off Amazon. Any of you guys that come from like Fitness World, you've probably seen that exact tripod in every gym you've ever been in, because everybody uses it, versus using a tripod with 3 feet. Because these 3 feet, when you want to make it actually go tall, they start spreading really far out, whereas the actual footprint of that tripod on the floor is very minimal. Next up, 2 more tripods, because I told you I've just got millions of them. These are called Jobies. They're Joby Gorilla Pods, and basically they're manipulatable. So the arms can bend in any sort of which way you might please. And then this one is bent so that I can put it across my lap while I'm playing and film my TV if I need to. That one, if you look at this, right, I'll show you. This little attachment right here that's on top of the Gorilla Pod comes with the creator combo of the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 camera that I'm using right now, and it plugs into the bottom of it so that it gives it a 60% longer battery life, makes the camera just a little bit longer, and can be attached to a tripod like this. You'll have to excuse the fact that the lights just got awful. If I turn that on, that's now the ring light's on. Watch this, right? You are now on that tripod, and I've set it to track my face, so you can do that. That's one of the cool things this camera can do. Again, still not sponsored. DJI, I love you. This is a cool thing that this camera can do that I just never use. Like, even if I stand up, it should keep tracking my face. Like, it should keep going. Hi guys, how you doing? And you would think that was the end of my tripods, and you'd be wrong. I also have this little one that again can screw into the bottom of the Osmo, or like just about anything else if I need to like hold it a bit more stably. And then before I had the Osmo, which has a built-in gimbal so that it doesn't get my jitters in because I'm a pretty shaky guy, I've got this, which is another DJI product. This is, it's a DJI Mobile 3, something like that. I don't remember the specific name. Basically, this is a gimbal for your phone, so that you put your phone in that cradle there, turn it on. Does it have any battery? Does it have any battery? Come on. I bet it doesn't, because I don't need it much now that I've got the Osmo. No, I think it's dead. But you can attach your phone to that and it stabilizes your phone. It's a cool thing. You can do some cool shots with it. Again, I've just got tons of DJI stuff. The microphones, the cameras, the gimbals. I suppose I should probably point out the exercise bike that's in the room, shouldn't I? Because I've not mentioned that yet. There is one. It doesn't live here year round. It lives here when I'm dieting. It's out the way. I don't like often stand back here, you know, and then what I can do is I can cushion my little bottom and sit on it and do some time while staring at the big ass telly. And I do like half an hour a day at the minute because I'm dieting. And yeah, there's that. I suppose now we can finally actually start talking. Actually, no, we're not. We're not done yet. We've got more stuff. We got more display stuff. I was about to say we can finally start talking about the games, but we're not quite there yet. Let's talk about the posters. So shout out to GBI because they sorted me out with these. So I've got this Ultra Instinct Goku poster. And over there, you'll have seen the Shenron poster. Again, trying to make sure that they were perfectly level with each other from across the room and straight down. That sort of thing makes me livid. I would much rather pay a professional to hang it. And I know that sounds ridiculous to pay a professional to put a poster up, but like, trust me, I'd rather pay once and have it done properly than mess it up myself and have holes in my walls and it not look right. I'm a firm believer in knowing what you're good at, knowing what you're not good at, and paying somebody that is good at it to sort it out for you if you need to. Other things that are on the walls in terms of display, I suppose, will come over here. Most of my like shelvings, actually all of my shelvings, they're all from IKEA. I don't remember the name of these, but if you just look for floating shelves, they don't do too many of them. And what you're looking for is the ones with the divots. The divots, I thought, would be enough to be able to hold the games upright the way that I'm displaying them. It wasn't. So instead, what I did was, if you look behind the games, I've got a little block of wood for each one, and that's my method of holding them upright. And again, it was a right faff trying to make sure that each one was equally spaced in between each other and simultaneously straight up and down. That sort of thing really bothers me. And then again with the putting in the Billy bookcase. So this is a half-size Billy bookcase. This is a relatively new edition since the last time I did a video like this, I think. And trying to make sure that the gap between that wall and that side and the start of the TV was a right faff. So I guess let's go through consoles and things like that, because we started with the TV. Actually, we'll do PC first, because then we can just finish off with that side of the room, I suppose. So PC is a little bit dusty, but for some reason I think it's just permanently a bit grey. Trust me, you see the orange thing that's over there? That's an air gun. I can't get it to not be grey. I don't know. It's just permanently a little bit grey now. In that is a 3080 Ti, a Ryzen 7 3700X, and 32 gigabytes of RAM. I think that my processor is a little bit of a bottleneck. When it comes to keyboard and mouse, honestly, it really doesn't matter, because I genuinely never ever actually use this setup anymore, because I have got my PC hooked up to my TV, and I'll demonstrate how I've done that in a moment. But over here we got, is it a Razer Deathstalker? Death Adder? I couldn't tell you what the name is anymore, but It was a nice mouse, and that's a Corsair keyboard. I know that for sure. And again, neither of them ever actually get used because I use that wireless keyboard and this wireless mouse. There you go. You can see the Osmo Pocket in my hand. And again, I did kind of render this entire setup almost entirely mute and pointless. It was perfect for when I was at my mum's house because this was the big TV that I used. The 40-inch TV was massive at the time, but obviously now I'm used to the 70-inch one that just outclasses it in every way. This was a pretty expensive TV when I got it 10 years ago and was better than some modern TVs. Like, in my old house, I had this TV on my desk and I was like, I want a TV at the end of the bed as well so that I haven't got to crane my neck to the right when we're watching a film in bed. So we bought another telly and I went through 3 different TVs on the wall because I wasn't happy about the fact that I could look at the same image on both TVs and it would look so much better, clearer and less green. For some reason, these TVs kept looking green in comparison with this and it really bothered me. So that TV, despite being 10 years old, was outclassing new TVs from just like 3 years ago. It was crazy. I love that TV. But when you start getting into like the bracket of $3,000 plus for a telly, then you're expecting it to be pretty perfect, and if it wasn't, you'd be pretty livid. Like when we talk about how thin TV is getting, if you look at it from the side, it almost disappears. We'll get to all what's behind here, and you might say it doesn't look very well cable managed, but I promise it actually is really well cable managed considering just how many cables are back there and the purposes they serve. So talking about cables, anything that I can do at this setup is mirrored over here. So for example, that big TV is connected to that PC and the PC is also connected to that little monitor. So anything that's on the big TV there is also on the big TV there. Anything that's on the little monitor here is also on the little monitor here. So it doesn't matter whether I'm sat on the sofa facing the bigger TV using this monitor and that one, or whether I'm sat facing this way, it works both ways. So realistically, it's very rare that I use this. If you're wondering where this chair's from, because it does look pretty comfy, I know. It's just a cherry tree. It's called Cherry Tree. It's an Amazon brand. It costs like 100 quid. It's nothing special. Again, I'm not exactly big enough to have like DX Racer trying to send me chairs and stuff. I had one of these chairs until it was wrecked, and then I got this one when we moved into the house. And yeah, I love it. It just doesn't get used very often. We love it enough that my partner has the exact same chair in her office too. So if you're wondering the way that PC is connected to the other side of the room, basically if we come down here, let me get on one knee, you can see, let me just reset the gimbal so it looks a bit straighter. You can see the cables that go down the back there. They're pretty well hidden, right? They go into some cable trunking and then along the skirting board. First, there's actually an Elgato HD60 back there as well that all of the consoles run into first so that I can screen capture things perfectly too. So a cable comes out of the PC and then into the cable trunking, and it runs all the way across the room, behind that bookcase, behind, all the way back there, and then up and into the back of the TV. Now, if you do that with a regular HDMI cable, your image is going to be awful, your input delay is going to be terrible, and you're going to get signal dropouts all the time. You have got to have a really good cable for it to work properly at this distance, at these resolutions, at these refresh rates. Like I'm talking, these HDMI cables were running me like £50 to £70 for like 7 to 10 meter long HDMIs. They're called powered HDMI cables, and I think they've got to be like HDMI 2.2 or something like that to be capable of 4K 120. But once you've got a good cable, you can just then forget about it, and that's the way I want it to be. Is because if I ever had to mess with any of this, it'd be horrible, especially because like the billy is in the way of it and all that sort of thing. It'd be awful. My brother in Christ up there, are you paying rent to be in this room? Because you better be. One of the only downsides to this setup is the fact that there are obviously going to be a few cables visible because of the fact that I've got a monitor here that is connected to a PC over there, and it being in the middle of the room means it's not exactly possible for me to hide those cables. So if you think every display is going to have a power cable and a display cable. So power cable, display cable, they come out and go over there. Then you've got to factor in the fact that in the back of my PC, I'm going to have a Camlink, Elgato Camlink 4K, so that I can connect my camera to the PC. So that's one more cable. And again, you got to make sure that cable's good because of how long it is. And then once again, I've got my Yeti X on the end of my low profile Elgato, whatever the hell it's called. And there's a cable going from that as well. And then also there's this cable on the floor here that charges this camera you guys are seeing right now while I'm playing games so that it never dies. And then of course, coming from here, I threaded it through the back of the sofa, through here, look, if I just pull this forward, I've got these two cables here that are just hidden away, that never get in the way, so that I can charge my phone all the time as well. It's about as minimalistic as I've been able to make it. And then also I've got, if you look under here, this is like a little cable holder that pinches this little cable so that when videos are done, I can connect my camera to the PC and start editing way more quickly than having to pull it off an SD card or anything like that. Again, everything was factored in with convenience and efficiency in mind. So now let's talk about the consoles and how they're all connected and all that sort of thing, because this can get kind of convoluted too. So again, one of my goals was I wanted every single console that I have plugged in and playable at once, at any time, without me having to faff too much, if at all, with cables. I've not quite got it perfect yet, although theoretically I might be able to. I just might have to spend a little bit more money. So first of all, and again, I've got to be able to record them as well, and that is another aspect that makes it much, much harder. Stay with me here because this might get complex. First of all, each one of the consoles has to send a HDMI into the... I'm just trying to make sure I don't stumble on my words here. So each one of the consoles sends out a HDMI. So there's a HDMI in each one of the consoles. So there's a PS3, a PS5, a hardwired Nintendo Switch just there, a Series X, and a 360. And yeah, if anybody's wondering, they do get enough ventilation. They're all deadly silent. You can't hear them right now, even though they're turned on all the time. They're fine. They've always been fine. I dust a lot. I open them up and clean them all the time. They're well maintained. Each one of them has a HDMI cable coming out of it, going into the back of a HDMI switch. Now, I'm trying to be really specific with whether or not I say switch or splitter here. So this down here is my HDMI switch. It is an 8K HDMI 2.1 switch. Like I said, every component of your chain, if you want to get the best out of your components, needs to be capable. So again, good HDMI cables, good HDMI switches. And then the output of the HDMI switch then goes back into that cable trunking that goes along the edge of the room, all the way over there into the Elgato HD60, so that I'm then able to connect it to the PC and record it. But then obviously the output of the HDMI, the output of the output of the Elgato also has to make its way back into this TV at some point. So then the output of the Elgato comes back through the skirting board and finally into the TV so that I'm actually able to play it. However, it's not quite that simple because not all of the consoles work quite that simply. For example, the PlayStation 3 has something called HDCP protection built into it, which means that when it detects that you're using something like a HDMI splitter or something along those lines, it thinks that you're trying to record Netflix or something and break copyright law, and will give you a black screen. Now, there are ways around that. For example, you can use a HDMI splitter. Now, the purpose of an actual HDMI splitter is to send one signal to multiple places. Say I want to use one PS3 and have the image appear on both of two TVs at once. You can do it that way. But what I use a HDMI splitter that's somewhere here. I think it might have fallen down the back because it's a set it and forget it sort of thing. It goes into the Is it under here? On my PS1? No, it's just... I don't know where it is. I think it's fallen back down there somewhere. I'm not exactly too worried about that. But basically, it has to be added to the chain. So for the PS3 specifically, a HDMI comes from the PS3, then it goes into the HDMI splitter, and then another HDMI comes out the splitter and into the HDMI switch. Then obviously the output from the HDMI switch goes all the way across the room into the Elgato, and then a cable out the Elgato back to the telly, so that I can record pretty much anything. Then we get more complex because we've got retro consoles that just don't have HDMIs at all, which again, spanner in the works there. So we've got a PS2 back here, and then you'll have to ignore the fact there's a disc out of a tray, we're playing with stuff. And then a PS1 there that genuinely never really gets used, so that hasn't actually been plugged in, that's just there for display kind of. I just wanted to own one because it was like 35 quid, and I was like, yeah, why not? PS1 I can use my PS2 or PS3 for, so like I don't really need it, it's just there because I wanted to own it. But then my Wii. So the Wii and the PS2 both use component cables, but the problem is that when it actually connects into the Wii or into the PS2, they use proprietary connections. What that means is it's not the same cable, so I can't use the same set of cables for both systems. So I had to buy two different sets of cables, even though on one end they're exactly the same. But again, I need to display on a modern TV. TVs like this do not have the component cables anymore, not generally anyway. Interestingly enough, that TV does, because again, that TV's 10 years old. So that TV, I could directly connect it. Granted, it wouldn't look perfect, or at least not quite perfect. And to be fair, even with these, it still doesn't look perfect. The first thing that I used to achieve this setup, though, was that little device there. That device there is called an OSSC. Basically, what it is, it's a line doubler or an upscaler. It converts that signal from component cable or composite from your retro consoles and then sends out a HDMI signal. So now you can imagine this, right? So I won't waffle there. We'll get there. So the OSSC can do that, but the problem is that it never worked very well with my TV. It didn't let me play with the settings that it was supposed to let me play with. It was like £200, and to be honest, I might as well have been a waste. So eventually, a few years later, I got this. This is the RetroTink 4K, I think, something like that, or 5K. I have no idea. Basically, it lets me use. It's perfect. It's basically plug and play. So you use a component cable, a good component cable. I got mine from Retrovision because they're supposed to be the leading manufacturers. I don't know, it's just what everybody else says. So from the PS2 or the Wii, component cables come out, then they go into the back of the RetroTink, and then the output is a HDMI cable, which then goes into the HDMI splitter, the switch, which then obviously makes its way, like we've said a few times now, over to the Elgato, and then back from the Elgato into the TV. So like I say, there's a ton of stuff. Basically, there are so many HDMI cables back here that you would be in shock that if I ever had to move house, I'm in big trouble trying to put this all back together. I might have to rewatch this. I would have to draw a diagram. When I moved into this house and I set this up the first time, I drew a diagram because it was just so much faff to try to figure out what everything was and how everything looks and the order of operations in terms of devices, in terms of the chain, in terms of the way it's got to work. But like I said, the goal was to make it so that I could do anything from anywhere. The only thing that I've not been able to do in terms of anything from anywhere that I'd kind of like to be able to do for nostalgia's sake is I would love it if I could set it up so that all of my consoles didn't just appear on that TV, but they also appeared on that TV, which to do that, I think they would have to go from the splitter to the Elgato, and then, no, I need to be specific with my wording here. They would have to go from the switch to the Elgato, and then from the Elgato into a splitter so that it sends one signal to the big telly and one signal to the little telly. I don't know whether that would work. Theoretically, it should. And that is the long-winded spiel of how all of my consoles can be set up all at once, despite how many of them there actually are. And again, you can just imagine how many power cables that is as well. Each one of these devices, a lot of these 4K HDMI splitters, switches, upscalers, all that sort of thing, they require their own power as well. There's a little hole cut out in the back so that cables can be hidden. And then if we come under here, you can see there's one power outlet there, and then I got another one the other day to give me some extra space. But like everything, you'd think that doesn't look very well cable managed, but you can't see. I'm lying on the floor right now. You can't see any of that from when you're sat on the sofa. So considering just how many cables are actually back there, I think I've done a really good job of making them basically invisible. The only cable that I can genuinely see when I'm playing, for the most part, is that one there that comes out my Series X. And the reason for that is because that's the one that powers my ring light. But what I'm going to do is those plug sockets back there, I'm going to get them changed for USB plug sockets, and I can plug it in directly there and make it more invisible. In terms of other stuff that I've got, let's go into my drawers, shall we? So this is where the real controllers are, by the way. You know how I said the wall of controllers was basically for display? It's because the real ones are in here. So we've got a docking station and two controllers, and I do that on all of my systems so that I never actually have to charge a controller, so that I never run out of battery. One is always charging, one is always being used at all times. Then we've got my Oculus Quest 2, which I love but don't use too often, but I'm due a playthrough of something. And in the other drawer, we've basically got the same setup again with spare controllers. So the Wii controllers, the Switch controllers, docking station, a wired controller for the 360, an actual Xbox One controller that I use for wireless play on the PC sometimes, and then the docking station for the Series X controllers here, which again, I should probably stick that on there just to charge it up. It's not exactly in use. But that's the gist of that one. This video has ran for so much longer than I expected it to, I'm sorry. If you guys haven't already, do subscribe, that'd be awesome. Help me get that silver play button. So over here we've got my Billy bookcases that contain my movie collection and my DVD collection. I've got a little bit over 1,000 films, if you actually count it out in terms of like individuals, because sometimes they take up one DVD's worth of space but contain several films. Like this right here is like the first 5 Fast and Furious films, for example. And if you account for how many times that happens across this entire bookcase, it comes to over 1,000 films, which I think is pretty cool. The reason that most of my DVDs, not Blu-rays or 4Ks or whatever, is because I collected them when I didn't have any money, when I worked at Tesco, and they cost 50p at the time for the most part at CEX. So the majority of them were really, really cheap, and it was really easy to get them, and it was how I sort of got into collecting. Across the top, we have all of my box sets, so X-Files, Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, Walking Dead, 24, Spartacus, Supernatural, Buffy, Angel, Vampire Diaries, Originals, Being Human, Digimon, Batman, the animated series, X-Men, the animated series, Dungeons and Dragons, Travesty, that never got finished, Avatar, Legend of Korra, and the Golden Collection of Looney Tunes. Then we've got a few more box sets down here with Ben 10. Behind the Ben 10 one is Ben 10 Alien Force, so I've got all of the original Ben 10 show and all of the Alien Force show. The Pacific and the Band of Brothers, Death Note, and then a few miscellaneous things. Heroes, that hella needs a dust. Californication, don't watch that with your parents. All of Arrow, and then that sort of is a tatty shelf. There's nothing of importance down there. That's all stuff that needs to be swapped out. It's just wrecked. Everything is arranged via genre, then alphabetical order, but by franchise taking precedence over that. So, for example, if you look at the James Bond films, because they all start with a different letter, I've still got them together, for example. This entire shelf right here is Scooby-Doo. I love Scooby-Doo, very nostalgic to me. Then we go into like the Disney, Pixar stuff on that row. And if we come up a row, this is more just family-friendly stuff, just all family-friendly stuff. And then if we come up, we've got like the thriller, drama, action style films across here. We've got the sort of world cinema martial arts films, starting at like Drunken Master, coming across here through Bloodsport and AWOL and Undisputed, Unleashed, all that sort of thing. The Raid. And then again, more comedy stuff. And then just more like drama, thriller stuff over here coming across. Still coming across. Quite a lot of that. And then you've got like your blockbusters, I'm pretty sure is how we determined this one. So these are like your huge budget, massive films. Your Harry Potters, your Hunger Gameses, your Indiana Joneses, your Jawses, your Jurassic Parks, your Fast and Furiouses, your James Bonds, Back to the Future, all that sort of thing. Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit on Blu-ray, because that's a requirement. Matrix, Pirates of the Caribbean, all that sort of thing. Then we go up another shelf and we go to our superhero stuff. So superheroes start here with all the Superman stuff, all the Batman stuff. This is all DC right here. Then we get to all the Marvel stuff. So this is all the X-Men films up to now. And then I've got all of the MCU, I think, up to Endgame, which is where we stopped collecting. Yeah, we got Endgame there. No, actually, Far From Home. We got Far From Home. Didn't get anything after Far From Home. We just ran out of space and there's been very few worth collecting after that, and it's kind of the Infinity Saga is what matters most, you know. And then up here, from left to right or from right to left, in case is the way we're doing it, is all horror. So right the way across here is all the horror films. Excellent. And then if we come over to this one, like I said, these are really tall shelves. We'll go from top to bottom. Over there on the left is my PlayStation 1 stuff, and then my Switch stuff, and a few cases for DS stuff. I don't have many. Then my Platinum games, which are all from my childhood, which I replaced all of so that they would look prettier on my shelves. And again, it's by alphabetical order, with not genre taking precedence, with franchise taking precedence in some instances. So like, I'm sure there's an example of that. Yeah, James Bond again. So James Bond, From Russia with Love. That's a James Bond game, but it doesn't say James Bond, so it's still with those. You see what I mean? So starts with 50 Cent Bulletproof, works your way across. It's all PS2 stuff, finishing with X-Men and X-Squad. Cool. Then we're going to PS3, same thing here. It's always the same rules. Just a ton of stuff. It's always nice to stand here and be like, oh yeah, I've got that. Like, bro, not many people have got Godzilla. I just think that's cool. Just a bunch of cool stuff, really. Then getting into PS4. Some more space for PS4 still to come. Some more space down there with 360 and such. And then down here is more 360, a small amount of Xbox One, and a small amount of Wii, and a bit of GameCube, PSP, original Xbox, and PC. Over here, we have stuff that needs to leave my room because it is mostly created cases from when I was in my mom's house. A lot of my games lived on shelves, lived on the windowsill, and got sun damaged, and I had to replace the cases. And when we moved into this house, rather than rebuying all the games and it costing a fortune, I bought a load of empty cases from a website called emptygamecases.net or something like that, and reprinted the cover arts myself. A lot of the discs are still real. I've taken the discs out, but once I started collecting games as like a bit of a job, I then obviously rebought everything, and now those are all to be gone or have been replaced with their PlayStation 3 or PS4 versions. And to finish off, I guess this is the only thing remaining I've not really talked about, is the fact that this sofa is called the Islington from Sofology. It is a double fold-out bed as well. So if I wish to put the room into cinema mode, because again, that TV is more than capable, it folds out to just shy of the front of the unit. It is a really nice mattress. You can pay like an extra couple of £100 to have like a full-on mattress built in, like a proper mattress. It's not just like a crap bed. It is, the bed that is in there is genuinely nicer than the bed that I slept on in my old house for like 17 years or something mental like that. It's when you become an adult, I didn't realize how much sofas cost. Like, I think this was like a £2,000 sofa in the end. The one we got downstairs for the living room, the big ass sofa, is like 3.5. It's crazy, but you have to pay for like loads of extras. Like, these headrests were like £70 extra, but again, are requirements for it to be the most comfortable it possibly can be. And again, paid a bit extra for the souped up mattress. So sometimes I put it into bed mode. I'll turn my lights off. Oh yeah, that's one more thing. I had an electrician put spotlights in my room so that it would be a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. Granted, 3 out of 9 of them are currently on their way out, and I need to get that solved. But that was another thing that we did. When we moved in, there was just one hanging light from the middle there, and this room was really, really, really dark, and especially because I record videos for a living at all times of day, that was definitely not going to fly. So yeah, something that I really love doing, for example, let me demonstrate. Something I enjoy doing is turn the lights off, and like whenever I've demoed this TV to friends or whatever when they come around, is I'll put on like Walking at Night in Japan because of the nice lights, and it's recorded in like 4K, and especially when you stick this in bed mode and you lie down looking right at this massive ass TV, it's like being in a cinema, and you guys know I'm a cinema guy. It's obviously the camera's probably not going to do the TV justice, but like, I love this TV. LG, Elgato, DJI, I love you. None of this is sponsored yet. Some people have told me I should get the Philips Hue and have the lights behind it, but I think that's a bit gimmicky, and I don't think I'd like it. So that is my ultimate setup tour. Like I said, I don't typically call it the game room. I call it my office because I'm not always gaming. I barely gamed the last week because I've just been recording non-stop for like all the various different accounts. It's not just set up so that I can game perfectly, it's set up so that I can film, edit, record, and just pump content out as efficiently as I possibly can. So like, I see other collectors that have just got way more games than me. Like their setups in terms of like gaming, they've got more consoles than me, they've got more equipment than me, they've got more games and all that sort of thing. But it's often function over form first with this room, is that I think I've got as much as I possibly can in here with how big as it is, while it still looks aesthetically pleasing. Any more shelves or bookcases anywhere would make it a little bit cluttered, I think. For example, I have considered I could get a very narrow bookcase and put it in that corner for a little bit more space, but I think A, it'd look a bit cluttered, and B, I like storing my tripods in that corner when I'm not using them because they're out the way. I already let go of one spot. It was only about 3 months ago that I put all of that stuff there. So for example, that wall was just a blank white wall that I would stand in front of when I needed a white backdrop with no... Like, for example, if I'm filming a video that is about fitness or like anything like that, I don't necessarily want to be stood in front of a Goku poster or like a wall of controllers or anything like that. Sometimes your background needs to reflect whatever content you're creating. So there is that. But I ended up realizing that I did that so infrequently that it almost didn't matter anymore, and I just stopped bothering, and I wanted to put this there, and now I really enjoy using that as a bit of a backdrop for my gaming videos, which is pretty cool. So if we want to go through the stuff that's over here, I suppose. Silent Hill, all the Resident Evil games on PS1, Kuon, Rule of Rose, some Dragon Ball stuff, Silent Hill 2, 3 and 4, Project Zero, 1, 2 and 3, which is Fatal Frame, Obscure 1 and 2, and Haunting Ground. So yeah, it's probably not the best gaming room, and it's probably not the best gaming setup you'll see. Like, when Retro Ghetto goes to people's houses, I see like some amazing gaming setups that I'd love to have, but they wouldn't be practical for me in terms of a recording scenario with the sort of job that I have. So I always call this my office, not the games room, because it's not just the sole purpose. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. This is about as thorough as I possibly think I could have been. Whenever anybody asks about any of my equipment in future or like how I set things up, I think I'll direct them here because I probably didn't need to waffle on about how to connect all of the consoles to the various different things for as long as I did, but anyone that's watched my videos for any length of time knows that I am a bit of a waffler, and I hope that you guys love me for it. But once again, thank you for making a young lad's dream come true, in that you guys are now getting me enough views that I could live off of YouTube if TikTok ever went under. Because that was the thing, right? Is that there was the threat of the TikTok ban in America, which would lose a significant amount of views for a lot of people and like ad revenue, I'm sure. But that won't affect me anymore if that did happen, because YouTube, it's cool. So I love you all. Thank you all. If you watched this far, comment down below you'd like a cookie. That's always what we say. And I'll see you later.